Thanks for joining us today. We're going to talk about AI and data and the condition of the industry and technology and how those two things are coming together to drive construction contractors in 2026 and the next several years. So start by introducing ourselves. My name's Alan Hurst. I'm Senior Director of Product at HCSS. So I help run our product management teams and our product planning and delivery process. I have a technology background. I've been in construction technology for about 10 years, but most of my career has been in software services across a variety of industries and companies of different shapes and sizes. So I'll kind of represent the tech side of this. I've asked our friend Joe from Walsh to join us to give us more industry insight, and I'll let him introduce himself.
Hello, everyone. Joe Katroki with the Walsh Group, Director of Quality and Process Improvement. With the Walsh Group, we do heavy civil building, water treatment plant work across the country. Our offices kind of all over the place. And I kind of lead our water transportation side of things along with the technology and process improvement side of things. Been in the industry 22 years, all with the Walsh Group, and happy to be here today to kind of bring in some contractor insight to where we are and just what we're seeing with throughout the industry.
And so diving in, we're going to start today by talking about the major technology shifts that are shaping construction today. Next, we're gonna talk about AI and data, and how we're at the point where our industry is moving from buzzwords into how we actually apply those technologies to everyday workflows. We'll talk about data and analytics and real-time reporting and how important those are to operational decision making, especially in the next several years. And we'll close up with some practical steps that the contractors can start taking now, not one day, to help them stay more competitive. So, digging into the first topic, um, AI is coming of age. We're seeing as far as the technology adoptions moving from hype to kind of broadening into early majority adoption. There's a Bluebeam survey that showed that 74% of AEC companies are already using AI in at least one phase of their projects, whether it's design, planning, estimating, or construction. And there was a Dodge Construction Network report from 2025 that showed that 87% of contractors believe that AI will have a meaningful impact on their business. So it's not in an early adopter category of technology anymore. It's a mainstream expectation, and we've seen adoption increase not linearly but kind of exponentially. We saw AI adoption in construction. Maybe 23% of firms in 2018 were using AI or experimenting with it, up to 37% in 2023, and now the majority. And so we've seen that double just over the last couple of years, according to some CIRT data that was recently released. And there's a variety of factors influencing that we'll go into over the next hour or so. But AI really didn't suddenly get interesting. The environment has just made it unavoidable. Um, so we're going to do a poll question next to discuss um, where everybody in the audience is today, whether you're not using AI at all, whether you're testing, experimenting, or whether you're actively scaling adoption. We'll kind of use this to help frame the rest of the discussion. We'll give a few more minutes for folks to answer. Like we got maybe half of you all. A few more minutes. Take your time. Okay, I think we can start to look at results. I think. Uh, Okay. I think you're seeing results now. Somebody let me know in chat if you're not. We're seeing that. So among people who just responded, the leader is we got folks testing a few tools. Maybe a very small percentage that are actively expanding that across the business, and maybe a quarter of folks that are not using it yet at all. So that's consistent, I think, with what I have seen. Joe, I don't know if you have any comments of where y'all are on this journey.
Yeah, for ourselves, we kind of went through this whole all four of these stages just within the past year or so. Initially, very skeptical and didn't want to be on the bleeding edge, but have gone in to done some pilot testing about a year ago. That slowly expanded with a small group of individuals to kind of help see where the use cases were, and that's fully expanded to now we're fully going in with a in-house um, solution with one of the providers that's going to be available then across all the workflows that we're already kind of building in. So kind of just within the last year, gone through the whole realm of this from one end to the other.
Okay, we'll move on. I think. Um, okay. Why don't you keep going, Joe, and tell us?
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Good.
so part of the reason with our switch and it's gone relatively fast. It's just as we've been seeing the changes in the industry. Start with the obvious one: labor shortages. Not just labor shortages on the trade field side, but we're also seeing it in the office, the staffing side of just having good qualified people at in every place. So anywhere we're able to find efficiency in workflows, which we're already seeing through AI, that's going to help us try to maximize the good people that we do have to make sure everyone's doing to the best of their abilities. But labor shortage is definitely one of the main drivers across the board. I think we're all seeing from the pressure on the margins, obviously increased competition, and depending on the marketplace that you're in, definitely a lot of opportunities. In some marketplaces, they see to be shrinking. So definitely diversification on that side is definitely helpful for contractors there. But overall, we're seeing a lot of opportunities out there. Rising costs from whether it be inflation, geopolitical factors out there is potentially causing issues, especially on those longer term jobs, not able to pass them along to the owners quite as openly. But just with these new marketplaces, it's just created opportunities where we just need to be able to get into that. And with the additional data that's now available, that's being collected with all the different um, softwares that are out there and everything that's becoming digital, it's now made it where we've kind of seen the need that we had to make this switch into the AI realm in order to leverage it. We had the information there, had all this information digitally, and what we've then seen through some of the pilots to be able to kind of leverage it is what's kind of helped make us push our shift.
Yeah. Yeah, so the we hear in the news and in general around how AI is decreasing, cutting jobs, and decreasing the need for as many people. With what I've heard from our customers is that not so much that as a desperate kind of need to make their existing workforce more productive.
Mhm.
And so the requests we get for better AI tooling and more integration of that into our software is really around that goal. How do we make our people as effective and productive as possible and leverage these tools to do that?
Agree.
Um, One of the interesting things that we've noticed is kind of insecurity around the how folks adopt this technology. So only about 30% of firms rate themselves as above average in technology advancement, and that's actually been going down over the last several years. But yet, 83% of them are already using AI. So that contradiction is telling us something important, that the adoption is rising faster than the confidence, and it's an execution problem, not a tech problem. It really comes down to trust in these tools and trust that that they're leading us in the right direction. Talking now a little bit more about technology shifts. So we're still riding a wave of digitalization that has been going on for a long time. At HCSS, we've been trying to push this in the industry and kind of guide our customers toward digitizing paper processes. We started by pushing laptops to the field and iPads to the field. And now we're trying to move from or help leverage AI and data analytics to um, decrease the amount of data entry and move that toward data verification. So capturing and automating as much data entry as possible, reducing the amount of time and clicks that a user has to spend in software so they can focus on their job. But as we've been on this journey over the last 15 years, we've seen that broadband availability expand, especially due to things like 5G and satellite that's been able to accelerate really quickly, which is enabling our customers to use more cloud tools, have more live data, and create cloud-first workflows where field and office personnel are working in shared environments with the same access to real-time data, and paper is really disappearing quickly, and digital is the default for all information. Um, but not every job site is connected still. So we at HCSS we're balancing that. Like, how do we make the best, most modern tools available while still enabling the disconnected job site, and having a fallback, a manual fallback, or disconnected fallback. But papers in general become not just inefficient, but risky to a business. You have any comments on that, Joe?
I would say that, again, like you said, the broadband expansion definitely has been a benefit, and pretty consistent across the board now. On the digitization side of things, for being as large of a company we are and advanced in many ways, we were still on paper timesheets as of a year and a half ago. And just it was due to being the size that we were that it took us a long time to be able to make that transition into a fully digital system for payroll processing. It's been great, and there's been other avenues that we've been on a digital side for years. So I kind of just share that as while it's great to go all in and totally get rid of paper across the board, it doesn't have to be an all or nothing scenario. You can kind of pick or choose the processes that, hey, this still makes sense in paper. Still a lot of form, and that's still, no matter what we give them, they still want their drawings on 11 by 17 in a big booklet, and that's the only way they're ever going to look at them. So still have to be able to manage those paper necessities where you need them. But obviously, the more you're able to put digital, more you're going to be able to do with it down the road.
So on the back of those advancements, we see that rise in automation. And so automation today isn't really about replacing expertise. It's about enabling that expertise by removing repetitive and time consuming and low value work from those folks. So those tasks are increasingly handled by software and AI agents, and even early AI assisted document processing and scheduling. And we have customers seeing an ROI in that. Um, we're also seeing consolidation. Larger platforms are absorbing niche tools because those contractors want fewer systems, and they want those systems to talk to each other. So we're seeing more deep usage of fewer tools,
Mhm.
with a preference toward connected systems. And we're trying. Companies need to mitigate concerns like data security, um, the lack of training and familiarity with these AI tools inside their workforce, and also just employee buy-in to that. So trust matters as much as capability in terms of these AI tools.
Yeah, the consolidation is a huge one for us. What the biggest complaint that we get from our job site teams is there's just so many systems. I don't know where to go for which thing I'm looking for. I just need a roadmap just to figure out what app to open. So definitely consolidation is a definitely something everyone should be looking at. To while every tool seems to say, well, I'm the best at doing this one thing or this one thing. Like Alan, you said, being able to use a tool for the breadth of elements helps create more standardization, a lot easier for things to talk to each other. Because many of the systems that say, oh, well, I have an API and I can talk to this system and that system, yeah, maybe in a perfect world they could, but not necessarily how you're using it, or you don't, it's additional cost to set that up that you don't really want to go that route. So kind of understanding how everything actually works together and trying to ultimately, you're trying to make these technologies work for your people. So understanding that what's their limit of the number of the systems you really want them to learn goes a long way.
I have another poll. So take a few minutes to pick a choice for this one. Um, as we're discussing barriers to adoption, we hear these things a lot. So I'm curious how these present for your companies.
Can I click all the above?
Yeah, that's probably the right answer for most folks. All right. So looking at the results of this, um, uh, questions about ROI seems to be leading, which is a great question because we ask ourselves a lot as people that are building these tools. We've had lots of great ideas, so we get into R&D, find out that this isn't uh, really helping, or the quality's not high enough, or things like that. So you've got problems on the tool side, um, and then you've also got problems on the internal side. Like what what is the internal expertise? How quickly are those folks, even if they are aware or educated on the tools, how much will they be resistant to adopting them? And so we'll dig into these a little bit more as we go through the rest of the presentation. Thanks for responding to the poll.
Yeah, the one interesting thing I'll say on that, interested on those results. For us personally, data security is probably the number one barrier at this point in time. And part of that is just there's stories in the news all the time of different companies getting hacked, this and that. Data breach to crypto scams and all that that's been coming along. So I mean, having a good data security support program definitely hugely beneficial across the board. In fact, every software that we look at before we even try to use it, we go through a pilot program where one of the first things is we go through and check the data security. We got a handful of things that we always go through with our IT group just to make sure, hey, this is a company that we want to make sure that we understand what's going on with the data, where it's stored, how it's used, what happens if it gets broken into, things like that. So that's one of the first things that we look into before we start utilizing anything that's out there. And kind of maybe tied to the other elements, part of the reason for that is probably for the 5 years prior, there's been so many different technologies that are being used that it's create a lot of internal experts on individual systems for individual things. But then we've realized that, well, Jimmy knows all this about this one software, but we got another 2,000 people over on the other side of the country that have no idea that software exists. So we have that internal expertise, but being able to share that across the board to make sure everyone actually leverages that software, especially before going out and buying another software that does the same thing, has been an area of concern. So trying to ratchet that down. But for us, it all comes back to the security side.
One of the one of the threads that we see when we are having conversation with folks trying to figure out how to best leverage AI and data is that AI has been an accelerator of data analytics in general. So um, there before AI existed, it was difficult sometimes to make sense of all the data or that we were collecting, and to understand how to use it. And what AI is, as we've decreased the gap between being able to get data and being able to use it, what we find is that now that we can use the data more effectively, the data also has to be of high quality,
Mhm.
which is a challenge. So better decisions start with better data. So increased leverage of sensors and telemetry data, the photos, audio, and video. This is a data volume that we've been collecting, but now that data needs to be better so that it's more useful for us. Um, but we've seen across a variety of different industry studies that high performers are doing these things. They're using historical data, they're benchmarking their jobs, they're forecasting earlier, detecting variance earlier, and we really can only leverage AI on data that exists already. And so analytics maturity usually precedes AI maturity as a necessary component of AI maturity. So companies have to move from after the fact reporting and static spreadsheets to continuous visibility, predictive signals, and scenario modeling. What are you doing at Walsh, Joe, to improve the data quality that y'all are getting into the office?
Yeah. I guess first, before sharing that side, just to kind of push a little more on what you were saying, AI is great at filling in the gaps and trying to come up with an answer or whatever you're looking for. So if you take a bunch of bad data, you give it to AI, it's still going to give you an answer. It's not going to tell you this data is bad. It's still going to give you an answer, but it's going to connect the dots in whatever way it assumes you're trying to make it. And quite often we found that whenever you take a lot of unstructured data that doesn't have good quality, it's given bad results to us. So having that, uh, the importance of having good quality data is huge. From a Take it from a cost control side of things, that's typically very structured data with cost coding systems, timesheets, payroll processing. That's always been pretty well structured data that goes into however your all's cost report looks like. And that's something that's been very good of utilizing data systems like Power BI to kind of analyze that and show the data in a different way, beyond just what our cost report looks like, to make sure that you're maybe seeing indicators much sooner to be able to act faster. Um, ho- what One thing that we found though is that when that when we don't have standardization from how we are coding the work to how we bid the work, kind of creating that loop around has definitely been an issue. And don't have that apples comparison of how we're bidding versus how we're actually doing it in the field and using that historical data. So that's definitely helped of now better structure or standardizing from the HSS heavy bid to what we're doing in heavy job and having the more consistency so that it flows right on back. If you have that set up, you already are seeing that benefit from it. Then from a safety and quality side of things, for years we've had in-house systems of kind of tracking incidents and inspections as they were going along. And while we're getting some data of the count and cost and who was getting injured and body parts, there's only so much we were able to do with it. Now, again, with HCSS safety and tracking everything through there, it's more real time, but we're also able to tie it to individual crews, foremen, cost codes, so that we know the actual activities that were happening during the rework or during the safety injury or first aid. And that's allowed us to now trend the data a little bit differently, that when we know we have a bunch of work going on whether it's structural steel or underground drainage pipe, we now have data history to show, all right, well, here's the predictive of the chance of there being an incident or being an accident with this work. And that's helped us so much now as we started going to that. Now, it's taken us quite a while to do that, and it's a lot of cleanup of old data, but we're quickly seeing the value of it. now with kind of tying in that AI side to help us be a little more predictive.
Um, another trend that's influencing the way we are thinking about data is the real time nature of that, and how that continues to be more and more necessary. We used to have maybe reports that were have data from the previous day, or even reports that are hourly are now not good enough. Right? Folks want up to the minute reports, and they want those dashboards to be live updating rather than something you send around an email on a weekly basis. Um, and that pressure comes both internally and trying to make data-driven decisions and run an effective job site, but also coming from owners. There's increased pressure for accountability, um, more compliance, more audits, more safety requirements, and more tracking and documentation. So there's pressure all around. That's all comes down to better data and more real-time data. But what's cool about the technology that's associated with this, that it's really democratized access to this information. We don't just have not the it's not just the biggest companies in the industry. It's not just ENR top 50 or whatever that have the resources to make this happen. Those tools are really in the hands of anyone that wants to invest the time and attention into making them effective. Um, I think, Joe, do you want to tell us about kind of reality versus hype and how we've had gone from like maybe experimentation to adoption of some of the AI tools?
Sure. So it, I'm sure everyone here is getting cold calls from different vendors saying, "Hey, are you, we got this AI here, AI here, AI here." Probably three-quarters of the time, they're saying the words AI, but it's not actually AI. Um, so that's definitely something that we've seen that everyone just wants to talk about because they think they're just going to be able to make money off it. So definitely be skeptical of vendors and that saying that they're actually using AI. It's not always the case. And it's something we saw very early on. People were starting to jump on that bandwagon real quick. But when you actually started seeing how they were utilizing it and some of the details within, you're like, no, you're just putting a couple pieces together, but this isn't ultimately going to provide any value. We're at the end of the day. Um, so as we've gotten more into it, between testing out the Gemini and ChatGPT and Copilots that are out there, and seeing some of the vendors that were truly leveraging in the right way, initially our first concern was security and governance. All those companies have been very clear that anything you upload, anything you say, it's public. It's going to be there forever because that's how they're training the model, and that's why all those systems are free because they want the information because that's going to make them better at the end of the day. So that is the difference between the with that paywall of kind of doing a private or corporate account with a chat GPT, or that you're at least putting some firewalls in place. And that's been one of our biggest concerns, is whether it's one of those main players or once the outside vendors, anything we put in there, what's happening to it, where's it going, how's it going to be utilized, was one of our biggest concern, and a big reason why we really didn't move forward with anything until we knew we had a good plan, um, with a trusted partner that we knew our data was going to be handled correctly, and not no concerns on that front. So that was our main hurdle to get through. Then, as we've been testing it, it's really been the data quality of it, and a lot of it. You probably have heard the whole idea of a prompt engineer. That, with AI, again, you could ask a question 10 different ways, you're going to get 10 different answers when there's really only one correct answer. And it all goes into how you're asking the question, what you're asking the AI agent to act as, how you want them to respond, what you want them to use as context. That all plays into it. So we put a lot into now creating kind of uh, agents or little working areas of, hey, if you're looking for information on construction work planning, you go here. If you're looking into cost control question with AI, it's here. Schedule is here. This way, it's using the right context information. A simple example is in the realm of things like doing a submittal review. If you were to try to take a submittal and upload it into one of these systems and say, hey, does this meet this spec? Well, unless you specifically tell what job, what spec, what section, it's simply going to find any spec where it does meet, say, yep, it meets. So kind of, so that's been one of the issues with the reliability and I'll say the skepticism side of things is that everything that comes out of it, it's going back to it. Are you sure this is right? Because still half the time, if I ask it 1+1, sometimes I don't get two. So making sure that it's confident in its response, providing the sources for its response is definitely something we always are training our people in how to use. That kind of goes to that last sub bullet there on the skeptical workforce. Construction workers at every level are usually hesitant to change in their ways. We saw that in the response to the one poll question. So helping show them the value, show them the real life use cases have been very helpful, but it's taken a lot of training and kind of simplifying what you're asking them to do so that they're able to see the more consistent response has shown a lot of value.
Yeah, I think that slow adoption of technology in construction is not really because of ignorance, right? It's because the margins are thin. The risk is asymmetric. Some mistakes are really expensive. And there's been tools that have historically and continue to promise more than they've been able to deliver. So it's really top of mind for us not to fall into that. Just we want to make sure that the tools we build are not hype, right? There's across not just in construction, but across technology in general. We've got a lot of vendors that are putting AI capabilities in their tools as a way to justify price increases without necessarily delivering a lot more value. Um, but the customers that are adopting it, you said, do have those concerns. And once you get over the adoption hump, you still have uh, issues with 60% of folks who report issues, concerns about data security. 58% have concerns about really leveraging the tools effectively or well enough to justify the ROI because their tools are expensive and they're not going to get cheaper. Um, and we've already talked about like the data quality issues. So um, it's important that we recognize that AI is not going to replace expertise; it's going to replace typing. So we should lean on those tools, but not necessarily, but use them the right way and for the right things. Right? Don't attempt to replace human experience and human thought.
Yeah. The phrase we use is, AI can write a letter for you, but AI is not going to sign it for you. You're still going to have to sign it. So you better make sure whatever AI wrote for you is 100% right.
Um, All right. So, but as folks that are using it, how are they using it? We've seen that 70% of folks are looking into it for contract and document review. 65% are using it for information accessibility. 60% are using it for process optimization. So that just continues to reiterate the point that we're in a shift from data entry to data verification enabled by these tools. Humans, like you said, still remain accountable, but AI can remove some of that clerical drag. Next, we got one more, well, more than one more poll question. Well, we got another poll question anyway. I'll give a few minutes to make some choices here. And this will help us understand where AI can deliver the most immediate value to your organization. And it's also useful for us internally as we have products that address each of these areas. Where should we be doing the most R&D? Give it 15 seconds or so. Okay. Yeah, estimating a pre-construction. It's not a surprise that that's the winner. Uh, There's a few reasons for that. One, it's heavily numbers driven, which and data and analysis driven. It's also done in the office. Where tools are available to us and already kind of using uh, PCs from day to day. And document control, another area where there's a lot of input coming in, where people are having to pull information from one data and source and put it in another data, another system. So it's ripe for automation. What are your thoughts on these results, Joe? You got any? These consistent with what you expect?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the estimating pre-con probably will have the most benefit. Still waiting for that one system where you just upload all the drawings and specs and it gives you a number. I don't think we're quite there or we'll be there anytime soon, but definitely a lot of potential there. And then the scheduling is the other one that we're looking into more of, how be more predictive on the scheduling side of things, ensure we're focusing on the right elements. The doc control, reporting, and even cost control, I think are easy items of immediate return on investment with AI and those elements. And I think those will be the initial ones that we'll see a lot of AI tools pushing on those sides.
And that's areas we're investing R&D into. It's as we've gone through experiments and estimating on the estimating front, how can we pull AI capabilities into heavy bid? There's these threads run through that, right? We've been evaluating those experiments based on their quality, based on accuracy, based on comparing the output from a automated AI estimator to a expert estimator, just so we can tweak and tune those systems to make sure that if we put tools out there in someone's hands, that they're going to be able to rely on them. They're going to be able to have trust in them. Because um, you don't get a second chance at a first impression when it comes to people using these tools. We want to make sure we get it right. Okay, as far as what to expect in the short term. Uh, we see things. So we're going from AI experimentation to AI operational. We're operationalizing it now. So it's less about adoption, more about scaling. It's less about using ChatGPT on your phone, more having those capabilities in context of the tools you're already using, or changing tools based on availability of tools that are better, that do have those integrated capabilities. Data quality and interoperability is really important. Data that lives isolated from all of your other data is far less valuable, and you're losing the benefit of an AI system that can make connections to data that would have taken a lot more effort for humans to make. So there's definitely creating incentives for folks to get data integrated. Standardization over ad hoc. One of the ways that we get better data is by having more standardization of practices and more consistent data collection patterns so that the data is of higher quality. Um, and kind of throughout, we see AI as creating superhumans instead of replacing humans. Uh, Joe, do you have any comments on what the ROI, what the R is, the ROI for y'all is in adoption of these tools? Is it these items on the bottom there?
Yeah. I guess on the last comment made though, I do want to say, I don't know if I said it before, but it really needs to go back to focusing on people, process, then technology. And technology always needs to be third in that realm. That's what your people need. It's how it works in the workflow, and then how you bring in whether it's data, AI, or outside tech softwares, and just always remembering that it's not just trying to figure in. Oh, I bought AI, now I just got to figure out where it fits in. If you're looking at it that way, it's ultimately that you're going to have issues somewhere else along the way that's not really going to work for you. Um, as far as the returns that we're looking for, it's on how we're going to keep our people safer. Being more predictive of on the potential risks and hazards. So our foremen on the field know it as soon as they start off their day and they're going through their pre-task plan. They already know what hazards are going to be in front of them based on our own data, based on the job site and what information's there. It's less rework, whether that's in the office or specifically in the field, kind of through the same thing, through the different inspections and more real-time data on that front. Then ultimately helping us be more profitable, work ahead of schedule, um, and trying to dive in all the way from the estimating side and leveraging from that front to the scheduling and cost control measures to make sure that ultimately all of this is working for our field teams.
Okay, I think this is the last poll, if I remember right. So let us know what you think on what your immediate next steps are as far as AI adoption. Okay. Um, okay, heavy investment in data analytics and AI and automation, which is appropriate, and one requires the other. So if we able to kind of combine those two into one, is the vast majority of what folks are doing there. And we'll come back and let folks ask questions about this stuff too. I think this is probably pretty good material for us to dig into further based on what the people's interests are. But back to immediate next steps. Um, so there are areas where workflows that are still manual, slow, or disconnected. That's a good candidate for automation. Um, and we can't do that without closing those gaps. So we need to train teams early and often. There's access to these tools is foundational. So getting the tools in the hands of your workforce and enabling them to take advantage of those is the first step toward operationalizing and scaling AI adoption. So we see customers uh, figuring out the details of that. So back to comments Joe made about data quality, data consistency. Those things come in as soon as we get the tools in people's hands and start to teach them how to use them. So um, that's another thing that contractors can do now to prepare for this revolution. The more investment you have in data quality, the more likely you are to be able to capitalize on those investments when the tools inevitably improve. And we'd encourage folks to go ahead and adopt and apply AI where the return on investment's available for you. Um, there are anytime a human's acting like a computer, it's an opportunity for the computer to step in. So automation around documentation, tracking, scheduling, um, and in kind of in the longer term, um, gathering more job site data, gathering more safety data, safety observation data. So the more leading indicators we can find and gather without folks having to do data entry, the more likely we are to be able to have predictive analytics to keep job site incidents from occurring. Joe, do you have any comments on what somebody coming out of this call can do today or at in the start of the year to move their AI program forward?
And I think kind of as you laid it out in those steps, I'd hate for people to try to jump towards this, start testing things out and trying to move forward with different systems and that prior to having some of the foundational elements. So kind of how you had the prior slide, kind of taking that a little bit in order before you actually start adopting something. By all means, pilot test. Find the smartest, youngest kid. I'm sure he's probably already using ChatGPT on a daily basis for himself. Ask them, get feedback from them of how they want to use it. Again, go back to the people, the forum, and the superintendents. What is it that they want in a perfect world, and see then how AI can fit into that workflow. And I'll go back to the training side that you got to train the people regardless of it. If you're still doing paper to whether you're using digital form, ultimately, how do they need to be filling those things out and getting the right information so that you can ultimately leverage information, even if that's not going to be for a year or 5 years from now. The better and earlier you start on getting that data quality going, the better that's going to help you in the long run.
Yeah, training, investing in that training early requires a mindset shift. It's not just overhead. We got to see it as risk mitigation and enabling future data-driven decision making. And so that's the ability to factor that training into job schedules is a strategic investment that those folks need to figure out a way to manage. Okay, let's go ahead and get to the takeaways. So we have some time for Q&A. So change is accelerating. If we think back to where the AI tools were a year or two ago, we're in a dramatically different place. So use your imagination to think about what that could mean for the next couple of years. We may not recognize uh, the state of these tools 2 years from now compared to where we are today. Um, so it's going to change construction faster than in previous cycles. The cloud revolution took a while to change the way a job site works. I don't think we're on the same time schedule for AI influencing the way construction companies work. So at this point, we're moving from AI as a trend, as a buzzword, to a business that's essential to a construction business and to our planning. So firms that stay on top of that and start early are going to win in space where that's driving performance. And if you don't take anything away from this other than, or I'd focus on how data analytics and real-time decision making are going to change construction, and how data entry and data quality and consistent capture is going to drive that analytics and AI revolution. And the folks that do that well are going to have a competitive advantage. I guess now we'll move into Q&A. And I'm not quite sure how to manage that. So hopefully someone on our side will.
Yeah, looks like we have a few questions. One is, what kind of AI-based workflows can we look forward to with HCSS, especially on the heavy bid side, such as abilities to establish ROMs based on historical data, utilizing past estimates, or automated takeoffs?
Yeah, it's a good question. So we are actively experimenting. We have teams running experiments on how we can accelerate, let's say, not automate the estimating process, but accelerate the estimating process using AI. And so that starts with the inputs to the estimate, whether it's a lot of that's bid letting documents or plans, and being able to process those documents and pull the most important information out so that we can pre-fill estimates with data that doesn't require someone to read and move data from one document to another, and then provide that agent that's creating that estimate information on the context that it needs, whether it be DOT data or previous production data to inform those numbers and make them available so that we're not replacing estimators, we're helping existing estimators become dramatically more effective. But it's not just estimating, right? Documents are used throughout the workflow. So we've got smart documents research going on in Fleet for how we handle automating entry of preventive maintenance schedules or something like that, or parts lists. We're using it in operations to manage RFIs and submittals, to manage materials tickets coming in from a job site. So we've got experiments going on across the board in kind of the smart documents arena. But that's one category. We've got like 6 different categories of AI tools that we're looking to build from kind of those document-driven workflows to what we're calling magic commands. They're smart helpers that will show up in context of what you're doing rather than having to run to a chatbot to ask a question. Those insights are made in the context of what you're doing right now on the screen with the data and alongside it. So in kind of getting into future, we want to factor more of that industry data into our decisions. We want to pull that into reports. We want proactive alerts that don't require someone to run a report to find a connection between some data, but put that in front of you real time as it's made available. So there's a variety of different experiments there.
Yeah, looks like the next one we have is for Joe. What are a few real world use cases AI has helped your company? What did you use and what did you do?
Good question. So some of the early elements that we're pushing in. So simple one is submittal review. By isolating contract specifications, drawings, created avenues so that users can upload submittal. And not only does it actually do the review, but it actually gives a checklist to say, all right, the spec says it needs to hit these 12 things. And here's how this submittal package hits those 12 things, or maybe where it's falling short, and shows you the individual pages. So it kind of gives you an individual checklist that then the user is able to go in, vet out, verify before processing. From a work planning side of things, we're using AI to help denote potential risk, hazards, as well as mitigation strategies. So for activities as simple as forming and pouring a sidewalk, to installing a retaining wall, to doing tile floors, by simply uploading some the specifications, drawings, again, keeping that isolated versus just using whatever YouTube video you find on the web. By isolating what information it's using, along with we're able to use a lot of the data we have on past safety injuries and quality rework incidents, that it's able to then pull that data to say, all right, based on your history, here's some things that happened before in this type of work, and here's things you should incorporate into your plan to help mitigate that from happening. So those are the 2 initial ones that we've really been pushing out and leveraging, and now starting to get into things like scheduling, where we're able to compare our CPM schedules to our daily and look ahead schedules to help make sure they're truly matching up, that we're actually working on the things that our CPM says that we need to be working on. But especially on a large job that's got a 300-page CPM schedule, that's where AI has been able to help kind of leverage that mass knowledge to kind of do that analysis for us to help us stay on top of that, versus trying to do that line by line analysis. Similar on cost reporting, kind of doing the same thing on that. Those are the few initial ones that we're looking into, or have already started leveraging.
Awesome. Now we're getting quite a few questions specifically about how HCSS is moving down the world of AI. But they want to know if we have any roadmaps or if we're working on anything regarding fleet management tools, and if our data can be live fed into Power BI.
Yeah, great question. I'll try to hit each of those. We will have roadmap guidance for customers, and especially UGM. So we'll be able to answer lots of questions if you're coming to UGM. If you're not, It's still time to register, I believe. Uh, and then on our roadmap site, we're still finalizing 2026 roadmaps over the course of the next few weeks. So as those become available, we'll put updates on our roadmaps.hcss.com site for folks to look at those. And I guess let me make sure that that's right. And so there'll be access to that there, and customers that have annual business reviews. If there's specific questions you have, let your folks in our enterprise team, our customer success team know, and they can get in touch with our product team for specific questions. But there are a couple more points in there, Brooke, if you don't mind reminding me of what they were in
Yes.
that question.
One was if we are doing anything for telematics related. And another question that actually just popped in was what roles, such as project managers, supervisors, do we think would benefit most from learning and using AI in the construction industry?
Okay. Telematics workflows primarily we've been looking into bringing that data into other decisions. So how can we use data from telematics or OEMs to factor into uh, how we think about maintenance schedules, or how we think about equipment maintenance, how we think about estimates. Um, and that's part of providing as much context as possible to those expert assistants. There's also a question, I think, about Power BI. So we've seen, as we launched Insights last year, we've seen a lot of increased usage of that, and a lot of demand for custom reports, which is teaching us more about what we need, what customers want out of a reporting tool. And we really see Insights as a way to get information from across your business into one place to let you gain insights from it. And so that's driven off of Power BI. We also have customers that are using our APIs or our direct access offering to pull data into their own warehouses or their own ecosystem, and I've been putting Power BI or Tableau or whatever on top of that. So there's depending on how you want to engage or how much control you want over that data, we have a variety of tools available for that. And specifically about roles. Right now, office workflows are um, closer to the cloud, whereas field workflows have a few extra steps, either connectivity slower or unavailable. And we're still kind of waiting for Apple and Google to make some on-device AI APIs available. I hope that over the next 12 months, we're keeping a close eye on how Apple and Google are allowing on-device AI and what we can do with that. But even with the tools that we have now, we definitely have a field first mindset. We want to enable the field. We think that's where the efficiencies are going to come. So we're not ignoring the field user, even though the project managers and estimators probably have the most immediate use cases. But those may not be the highest value ones as we look, several years from now back at what's really made a difference.
I'll add something real quick there. One of the other use cases is, again, by warehousing the project-specific requirements in one spot, have scenarios where foremen, superintendents out in the field can ask a generalized question. Hey, I'm about to pour a slab on this building. Remind me, what was the mix design for it? And it will source that information, again, out of whether it be work plans, specs, drawings, for things like that. So instead of them finding a specific page of that, it'll give them the answer along with the source. Here's where I found that, from to be able to check. So helping make that flow of information back to them much quicker and easier.
Visit hcss.com to learn more.